Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations about Priesthood. Today's conversation will be with Garry Ward, who is a parish priest in the Diocese of Hereford. Sorry, I always struggle pronouncing it, and also the Diocesan disability advisor in the diocese as well. So really looking forward to today's conversation.
Thank you for asking me.
No worries. Hi, Garry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Not too bad at all. It's been a quiet day today, so that's not too bad. Don't get many of those.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know I've sort of briefly already introduced a bit about who you are, but I wonder whether you'd like to share a bit more about yourself, maybe share a bit about the context that you're in as well.
Okay. I've been ordained for about 20 years. Before that, I was a midwife. I started most of my working life, and the start of my ministry, the first 10 years was all in sort of urban priority area places. And then just out of the blue, this role came up. So I then thought, do I go and be a parish in all this greenery in the rural context of Shropshire? And it just sort of drew me into this. So I came. With very low expectations, actually, of myself, not of the parish, because I really didn't know this was a complete new venture to me. I've been here 11 years. I've absolutely loved it. So it was the move, and it was obviously the right call. Loved it, still love it, and I probably wouldn't go back to urban ministry now. I've just sort of got into the pace of life of rural. I think I did my time in urban priority areas, and this is the different priorities here. To be honest with you, there are problems, but they're different problems, and they may not be quite so obvious, the problems that you have here. So but we love it here. It's absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful.
And the disability role, well, I have rheumatoid arthritis and Parkinson's, so I am disabled. I use a wheelchair if I have to go anywhere distance. I can walk short distances, but other than that, I have problems with like this. I lose track of where I am. I have trouble with tremors and balance, etc., etc. So I did a lot of work sort of locally so that I was able to carry on working, and we lost the disability officer here. So I sort of prompted, are we going to get another one? And typical Church of England don't prompt to ask if you're going to get another one, because you end up with a job. So I've had the job, and I had the job, and we went into lockdown at exactly the same time. So it was very difficult to do anything for that 18 months at least, but now it's picking up again, and I've been out and about helping PCCs and individuals to sort out their life in church, and how to make things more accessible, how to be more pastorally sensitive to people, also the whole gamut that covers disability, really.
Yeah, and I suspect when we talk about disability, sort of neurodiversity, I guess the whole conversation around belonging comes into that, because people often talk about accessibility and inclusion, but I think belonging is also
belonging is very important. It's all right you can have a totally accessible church. You can have everything in it. You can have the loop system, the ramps, the handles, the disabled toilets, but if the attitude is wrong, it might as well not have any of those things, because it is the belonging, as you say, that is as important as the inclusivity and everything else that goes with it. So very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do a whole podcast on this.
We could.
Yes. One of the conversations that I always start off with when I'm having these conversations is, what is your understanding of the priesthood?
Priesthood. Oh, everybody that has a role within the church has a calling, and we all have callings, and nobody's calling is any better than anybody else's calling. So a calling to the priesthood, to me, is not better than someone who is called to be a reader, or someone who is called to do pastoral visiting, or someone who is called to make the coffee on a Sunday morning. You know, all these things are important. We're all called to do different things, and we all have different abilities, and we also have different ways in which we can support the church in the community. But with priesthood, it's a little bit different. I think you're called out to priesthood for a specific role, and that specific role is to be the representative in the middle, if you like. So on one side, you're the representative of God to God's people, but also you're the representative of God's people to God. And you stand in that central role mainly through the sacraments. So the sacraments are the sort of link, the glue that holds us all together, people, God. And I just feel called, and still feel called, to be the person that sort of helps spread that glue, make that glue work, stick the whole thing together. And I think that is the main part. There's all the other bits that go with it, all the other roles and jobs that the parish priest finds himself doing, even sort of help fixing the plumbing now and again, and, you know, digging the churchyard over now and again, if that's the case to be. But I think the main calling for a priest is to be that sort of middle, that sort of intermediary between both sides, between God and the people.
I love that. I love that image. And I guess from sort of your experiences, what would you say have been some of the joys and challenges of priestly ministry?
Sometimes it's a very sort of hard place to stand, because like everybody else, I know what faith means to me. I know what God and my relationship means to me, but my relationship with God and my faith is different to everybody else's. So sometimes it's very different to stand in that role, because a lot of people expect you to know exactly what they're feeling, what they're thinking, you know, and there is this sort of idea that everybody's faith is similar in some way, and everybody's faith isn't difficult. So it's difficult to thread all that together. But at the same time, it's also difficult to be the representative of God when everybody's idea of God, again, is different. And so the only way you can do it is by being honest, having integrity in the role, and showing that, yeah, I don't know everything. Yeah, I have wavers in faith. Yes, I have the same problems that everybody else does with my relationship with God and with other people. And yes, I'm not perfect. And yes, I do things wrong. And it's that being human, but standing in a place that is special, that makes priesthood very, very different. But at the same time, like I said before, my calling is no better than anybody else's calling. You know, we were all needed to further the kingdom of God. It's just that priesthood is a particularly different role from any other role, if you like. It's not better, but it's different.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's not better, but it's different.
And it's very difficult to articulate exactly what it is. You know in here what it is, and you know in here what you're called to do. Although sometimes it's quite interesting that even after sort of nearly 20 years of this, you know, I'll stand up at the Eucharist and the Lord, and you suddenly think, what am I doing? Who's given me the authority to do this? You know, I'm just me. Why me? And then you think, oh, hang on, everybody's looking at me. I better get on. and you suddenly click back into the role that you're doing. But there are still points in life where I get that, why am I doing this? You know, why has God called me to do this? And why do I have the authority to do this? I don't understand that. And I think it's something that you don't get comfortable with, and I don't think you should get comfortable with, because it's one of those great mysteries that, you know, tugs at us and pulls at us and makes us think and makes us just not be complacent in the place that we are.
Yeah, absolutely. You've articulated that so well. So thank you for that. Really final question then. Do you have any sort of words of advice, wisdom or encouragement for individuals who are discerning a vocation to ordained ministry, or discerning a vocation to any sort of ministry, really?
One piece of advice is, I know when you feel called to something and you think it is the right thing and you feel very strongly that it is the right thing. And I'm not saying it isn't the right thing, but all I would say to people is take time, think about it, pray about it, speak to a lot of people about it. And not just, if your calling is to be a priest, don't just speak to priests. Speak to other people. Speak to more other people than you do speak to priests. Yeah. Because if you've been in, especially as someone who's been in ministry for several years, they become a little bit tunnel visioned and a little bit blinkered. It's just the nature of any role. Mm-hmm. You get into any role in life, you get a bit blinkered in your speciality. So I'd say speak to a lot of people, speak to priests, but speak to a lot of people. Sort of test what they think. And sort of see if God is speaking through them. Because most of us don't have this sort of blinding light experience that Paul had. Most of us don't hear God's voice in our ear. Some of us do, and I'm very envious of that in some ways.
Yeah, it would be nice if we all had that.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? But most of us, it comes in different ways. It comes, I'm not saying ask for signs, but, we might have questions and all of a sudden that question's answered and you think, oh, and then you listen to somebody and somebody will reiterate something that you're thinking or saying, or you'll test it out and someone will say, oh, no, not that. How about this? Yeah. And then when you look back on that journey, you can see where God has been working in the pattern. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Mm. So that's why I say, don't rush, take your time. Develop what you think is your calling. Talk to other people. Be comfortable waiting and letting this relationship with God gather its impetus before you even look at selection or training or anything like that. Make sure that that relationship is what you expect it to be as well as what God expects it to be. And also, one thing that always makes me smile is if God calls you, why do people suddenly change who they are? Mm. They almost become a different persona. Like, if they like rock and roll, the rock and roll's got to be thrown out because it's not of God. Or if, they do something, suddenly, oh, I'm not going down the pub because I'm thinking of a calling. God called you for who you are. Okay? God will want you to reshape who you are to fit with the calling and to be the person that you're expected to be in that calling. But you can still be who you are. You can still enjoy the things you want. And God still wants us to enjoy life and laugh and smile and do all the things that we did. So those are probably the two things I would say. Wait, take time, don't rush into it. And the second one is be yourself no matter what. Don't change who you are. God made you who you are. And God has obviously seen something in this character that he has given you to call you to do a specific thing. So why are you going to change? Because that's going against what God called you for, in my mind. Somebody might argue with that. I'm sure they will, but that's the joy of this is, we can all have different opinions. And as long as we are willing to discuss these opinions, and we might have falling outs and arguments, but as long as we can shake hands and walk away as friends at the end, that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
And all we need to move forward is faith, belief, trust in Jesus Christ, death, resurrection, and all the things that God has given us. And that's all we need. The rest is window dressing, really.
I love that. I just love you're just so straight to the point. I love that.
Well, yeah, well, that's my character. That's what God called me for.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much. This has been...
You're welcome.
I've actually really enjoyed this conversation. I'm not saying that I haven't enjoyed all the other conversations. I have. But no, I just love...
Yeah. And if I lift the beard, I have got a collar on.
Oh, all wonderful. Right. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm sure that anyone who will end up watching this video will be deeply encouraged by it. I hope they'll be encouraged by it. So thank you so much for your time.
No,
and
you're welcome.
for all that
you
shared. Really enjoyed it. And so hopefully we'll get to meet in person one day.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely.
Wonderful. All right, then until next time. Bye.
Bye.